Hi book lovers, and welcome back to my queer little bookish universe. I'm Anna from Black Hair Tree, and today we're setting up one of my favorite chapter spreads of the year. I managed to listen to a lot of books this month, so I have 7 new spreads to share with you. But first, let's set up chapter 6 in my ongoing story about the 2 princes. Last month, they hooked up in the garden, beginning their love story. This chapter is all about longing, trying to put into words feelings that are still too dangerous to speak aloud. It's about the beginning of a secret romance told through hidden correspondence. The theme is love letters. I started by printing historic love letters in a handwriting font and then soaked the papers in coffee to get this lovely vintage look. I lowered the opacity of the writing to several different levels, and I think I'm going to go with this one, which is the lightest. This is going to become the background for the spread, but I don't want it competing with everything I'm layering on top. I just want a subtle hint of handwriting rather than something your eye keeps coming back to. I'm going to use fairly large pieces and cover most of the spread. I like fastening the straight edges with a tape roller, and then I use a glue stick on the torn edge so it sticks down properly without any flapping that might catch my pen later. I'm only using one focal image this month because the passage is going to take up quite a bit of space, and I also want to leave the spread feeling open and airy. I printed the image in several different sizes so I can choose what feels right once everything starts coming together. I don't have a printer at home, so if I guessed wrong, I'd have to bike all the way down to work and print another one, which would interrupt my creative flow. The chapter title is Letters Hidden in Roses, so I start by writing that on a piece of torn paper. I always do this before gluing it down, just in case I mess it up and have to start over. If you've been here for a while, you're familiar with my mess-ups. I want to give the torn paper even more of a weathered look, so I'm distressing the edges with ink, and I'm doing the same with the passage. Although it's more of a love letter than a quote this month, I decided to print it instead of writing it by hand. I picked out 3 different sets of rub-ons that I thought would suit the spread. I think I've been collecting rose-themed rub-ons for almost a year waiting for this chapter. I decided to go with this set as my main, because I absolutely love these vintage style roses and they go well with the focal image. These sets always come with little random words and phrases that I never really have any use for, but this month they actually fit perfectly. I'm adding them to little pieces of torn paper so they almost become fragments of love letters or little thoughts that have escaped onto the page. And of course, I'm distressing the edges on those too. It helps them look like they belong here rather than feeling like random scraps glued onto the spread. I absolutely love this new set I got because the flowers are so large. They're gorgeous and instantly become the focal point of the decorations. I want the prince lying there dreaming in the meadow to look completely surrounded by flowers. So I'm really leaning into the romantic decoration this month. And there we are, the hidden love letter, the prince dreaming among the wildflowers, roses, butterflies, and nature surrounding him. It's soft, romantic, and just a little melancholic, exactly the feeling I wanted this chapter to have. But enough daydreaming, let's move on to my first book of the month. It is part 3 in Alexis Hall's series about Luke and Oliver, and it's called Father Material. When I first heard the title, I immediately thought, oh my God, is Luke going to become a father? The man is basically chaos in human form. But then I remembered he has Oliver to keep the ship sailing straight. And then I saw the dog on the cover and thought, pew. So imagine my surprise when about halfway through the book, they decide to become foster parents. After making it through the approval process, a troubled 14-year-old girl named Jazz is delivered to their doorstep. Turns out I didn't give Luke nearly enough credit, because who could be better equipped to understand a troubled teenager than someone who has struggled through life himself? His one shining example of a parent is his wonderful mother. Oliver, on the other hand, his model of fatherhood is his own father. Even though he knows exactly what that upbringing did to him, he can't help slipping into some of those same behaviors that messed him up so badly he still needs therapy. But together they actually make a really good team once Oliver manages to exorcise the ghost of his father. My absolute favorite part of the book was Luke's mom gifting Jazz a guitar she once stole from a guy named Brian when she attended his graduation party in 2007, after he'd returned to university to finish his astrophysics degree following a 30-year sabbatical. Jazz, of course, has absolutely no idea whose guitar she's been handed. Imagine what this must be worth. Other than dogs and parenting, Luke remains dedicated to his work at CRAPP, the dung beetle charity. Unfortunately, it looks like he and his co-workers may soon lose their jobs when the charity's biggest benefactor dies, and his son can think of far better uses for his inheritance than funding bugs he couldn't give a crap about. To answer the unspoken question, yes, I enjoyed this much more than I did husband material. I found it sweet, funny, and genuinely unpredictable, and I can absolutely see myself listening to it again. Joe Jameson absolutely knocks the narration out of the park. Even though this is supposed to be their final book, I'd love to see these characters return someday, perhaps through somebody else's point of view. Jumping into Finding Delaware by Bree Wiley. Enemies to lovers, stepbrothers, there are quite a bit of tropes packed into this one. I wanted the spread to reflect the gritty, fragmented feel of the story, so I'm building the background from lots of random torn paper scraps. These two have a mountain of baggage by the time we first meet them in their late teens, and they just keep collecting more baggage as the story jumps forward through the years. This is a very well-loved book in reader circles, and I can absolutely understand why. It's gritty, emotional, spicy, and occasionally kind of funny. It reminded me quite a bit of Garum Park by Nordica Night. It's maybe not quite my favorite cup of tea, but I enjoyed it for the moment. My biggest frustration was that every time there was this huge build-up and you thought, oh my god, there's some quality level drama coming, the scene would cut and suddenly it's 3 months later. Then it happens again, the tension builds, you're expecting some top-tier drama, and then it's 4 years later. I feel like we were robbed of quite a few scenes I really wanted to experience. That said, I completely understand why so many people love it. If this is your kind of story, I think you'll have a great time with it. Next up is the 5-book Perfect Pixie series by M.J. May. I briefly considered making one spread for the whole series, but I quickly realized I wouldn't enjoy that very much. Every book has such a different personality that I really wanted each spread to commemorate its own characters. So we begin with Perfectly Imperfect Pixie and 6-foot-tall Pixie Phil. Phil is a home and heart pixie without a home to care for, which leaves him struggling to find work because of his unusually large size. Meanwhile, werewolf Cedric unexpectedly becomes guardian to his niece and nephew after his brother dies. Their parents' final wish was that Cedric care for them and keep them safely away from their evil maternal grandfather, Ari Bellevue. Since Cedric is about to enter a custody battle, it is suggested he hire a home and heart pixie to help restore order to the rather chaotic household, give it a good look. Luckily, Phil's unusual size makes him perfect for handling two energetic young werewolves. This isn't a romance between Phil and Cedric as much as it is a love story between Phil and the house itself. Home and heart pixies form magical bonds with the homes they care for, and before long Phil has formed just as strong a bond with the children and Cedric. I absolutely loved the world building in this series. It's contemporary America, but filled with magical creatures living openly alongside one another. Humans still exist, although there are far fewer of them now. After humans began working toward World War III, the magical races finally stepped in and declared enough was enough. The fairy race took control, and fairy law now governs every magical species according to its own nature. So for me, the biggest draw of the series is the wonderful world building, the quirky characters, and the sense of community rather than the romance itself, which actually stays fairly understated. Pixie dust plays a big role throughout the series, so I'm adding tiny sparkles all over this spread. I even bought these glittery pink nails specifically for this video. The shade is called Flamingo Pixie, so they couldn't be more perfect for Phil the Pink Pixie. The next book follows Phil's best friend, the nature pixie Peaches. Peaches is magically bonded to his orchard and spends his day caring for every tree. I wanted the spread to feel lush and full of greenery, so I dug out this set of branch stickers from my stash. There's a bit of fated mates going around this series, and Peach's fated one is no other than vampire nightclub owner Lucroy Mooney. Their relationship has plenty of obstacles. Peaches is a creature of daylight and growing things, while Lucroy only comes out at night. On top of that, drinking blood is deeply intimate for vampires, but drinking pixie blood is supposedly fatal. I also really like that Lucroy is a proper old-school vampire who transforms into an actual monster instead of sparkling in the sunlight. My favorite part of this book was definitely the sprites. When they first appeared, I thought, oh no, this is going to end badly. Instead, they were absolutely adorable. I want some. Where can you buy them? Of course, Ari Bellevue hasn't disappeared, and his schemes continue to ripple through the series, this time targeting those closest to Phil and Cedric. That brings us to Perfectly Charmed Pixie and two brand new characters. A social pixie hosting a reality TV show, and a warlock. I absolutely love the pairings MJ May comes up with. Social pixies literally feed on attention, so Parsnip has chosen the perfect career as host of a hugely popular television show. But he's hiding a secret. He's slowly losing his colors, something that's essential to every pixie, especially one as image conscious as Parsnip. To hide it, he relies on magical charms created by warlocks. Unfortunately, the charms are slowly draining his life force, but anything for appearances, you know. Since charms are such an important part of the story, I wanted to include lots of them throughout the spread. Parsnip's show is called Interspecies Habitat. It's basically a magical home renovation show where they redesign houses for couples from different magical species. He's currently filming an episode featuring Peaches and Lucroy, building them some sort of underground sanctuary in Peach's orchard where Lucroy can escape the sun. While he's in town, he visits local warlock Vander to replace his failing charms, and that's how the two of them meet. Vander quickly realizes Parsnip is his fated mate. He doesn't know exactly what Parsnip is hiding, but he agrees to create new charms for him, ones that won't slowly kill him. By this point, it's becoming obvious that pixie dust addiction is a major problem among ogres, and that thread becomes increasingly important throughout the rest of the series. Naturally, Ari Bellevue is behind much of the chaos, once again drawing Parsnip and Vander into the growing conflict surrounding all of our previous characters. The world building just keeps getting better. Honestly, I can't praise it enough. We stay in the same magical town where it is time for Perfectly Perplexing Zombie and Wendell, the atypical but lovable young zombie busboy working in Lucroy's nightclub. Something is wrong with Wendell. After his murder and resurrection as a zombie by Muriel, the priestess who runs Muriel's zombie cleaning service, he retained his consciousness and memories. Lolling about in the zombie compound with the other zombies was no good for him, so Muriel got him a job at the nightclub and an apartment above it. She's very caring of her zombies. Since he's legally dead, he doesn't have to pay taxes either, so that's a win. Turns out the cause of Wendell's atypical zombiness is because he has a tiny trace of fairy blood inherited from the long-lost brother of the fairy queen herself. Unfortunately, that same DNA combo is also rotting him away. The fairy queen desperately wants to preserve the last living connection to her brother, and the only way to save Wendell is for him to bond with a fairy. Which is how our favorite fairy lawyer, Hellfire Rayburn, steps up to the spotlight. Ray presents the proposal in the most lawyerly way imaginable, and Wendell basically tells him where he can shove it. He'd rather enjoy whatever time he has left than spend eternity magically bonded to someone who doesn't truly love him. Since Ray refuses to give up, he starts courting Wendell properly instead, and it's incredibly sweet. He even gives Wendell a pet scuttlebutt, since I couldn't find any artwork of one, and the description wasn't clear enough for me to draw one. I decided this little rabbit sticker could stand in for it. There's also the mystery of who murdered Wendell and why. Ari Bellevue is still pulling strings in the background, and an ancient djinn enters the story. And finally, we arrive at Perfectly Peculiar Pixie. Phlox is a pixie cat shifter hybrid and a secret agent, codenamed Frost, for the Magical Usage Council. It's finally time to uncover the pixie trafficking ring that's been selling pixies to pixie dust addicted ogres. And I think by now we can all guess who's behind it. This is also vampire Leon's moment to shine. As Lucroy's second in command, it's nice to finally see him take center stage. Phlox's plan is to deliberately get himself captured by the traffickers and bring the organization down from the inside. Unfortunately, Leon refuses to stop protecting him because the two of them are vampire fated mates, which ruins Phlox's plans. All our friends from previous books come together in this final battle against the forces of evil and conquer them for good. That was my final spread from June. I had so much fun creating these spreads, but especially this month's chapter opener, I think it might be one of my favorite story chapters I've made so far, and I hope you enjoyed watching it come together. Next month, we'll continue following our two princes as their journey takes another step forward. I already have some exciting ideas, and I can't wait to start bringing them to life. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you'd leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to follow along with the rest of this year's reading journal. Until next time, happy reading, and I'll see you in the next one.